Welcome to another episode of Reptile Fight Club. Today we're joined by Shane Madsen, so we're happy to have him on.
Thank you.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys.
And of
Glad
course,
to be here.
Yeah, nice to have you. With me, as always, is Mr. Bobby Pebbles, or as you may know him, Rob Stone. How's it going?
Awesome. Great to be here. This should be super fun.
Yeah, good stuff. So I guess we kind of got connected with Shane through some pretty cool events, and I'm sure he'll talk about those as we talk about the go through the topic on the show, and so we won't give that away right now, I guess, but yeah, some cool finds that he's had in his herping career. So but yeah, so I don't know, do you keep animals privately, or you just herp?
So not at the moment. Next week I'm getting a pair of Brettles.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Yeah, they're awesome pythons.
Yeah, I'm getting a male and a female Brettle hypo.
Oh, very nice.
So,
yeah,
they're
cool snakes for sure. That's one of my favorites. Yeah, I still need to see it in the wild though. That's hopefully next year we'll take care of that.
Over in Alice Springs, right?
Yeah. That's my big 50-year-old my 50th birthday bash we're gonna have over in Central Australia. So
that's
you're welcome
awesome.
to come if you're available. So
yeah. It's definitely, I'm thinking about it. That's
okay.
If I can make it work,
Yep. I'll give you the details. So yeah, the more eyes, the better, I think, over there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about a lot of things. The more the eyes, the better. So.
Yeah. Well, I had a couple clutches hatch out in the last since the last show, I believe. So I got some pygmy pythons hatching out and some eastern stems from kind of a selective some holdbacks that I've had that are just really nice Stimson's pythons, eastern stems. So trying to refine those, keep getting better and better easterns, but they're turning out really nice. There's a really crazy stripy looking thing in there, so I'm excited.
Oh, really?
To see how that one turns out. I'll probably hold on to that one, but yeah. Now the fun challenge of getting everybody eating starts. But I was hoping for a second clutch of pygmies, but the female laid mostly duds, and then the ones that looked okay, she didn't wrap, and I was out herping, so I missed that clutch, and I think there was only two good eggs in the clutch anyway, so I don't know. We'll give her a shot next year, but they bounce back pretty quick. So yeah.
I was thinking about doing also maybe down the road getting a pair of northern pines.
Yeah.
I want to maybe just do a colubrid that you don't see a lot of people out here doing northern pines or anything like that, so I think it'd be kind of cool to do a species that not a lot of people do.
Yeah, it's kind of cool to kind of be a champion of a species. I think Rob's done that with a number of species, but I mean, you're kind of most well known for the rhino rats and some of the island boas and things like that. So
yeah,
it is cool to kind of take the reins and lead, have a project that's kind of you. When people think about a certain species, they'll say, "Oh, I know who keeps those." It's kind of a nice way to do it. Yeah.
Your little own signature.
Yeah, exactly. I've kind of tried to do that with the Antaresia, so and try to keep those coming into the hobby, and definitely had really good success with the Western Stimson's pythons. Those are definitely one of my favorites, but yeah, they're really cool and they've done really well for me here. So
I'm not gotten into the world of breeding, snakes. So it's going to be interesting trying. So for my first time. So
yeah. And I also have kind of a lot of interest. So my collection's kind of spread through a bunch of different species. I have some projects where I have probably close to 15 pairs or something, but other projects where it's like just a two animals or, just a pair of things. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a little tricky when, if something happens, you're left with not much. So if you do have a signature species, it's a good idea to have, at least a couple pairs or
Yeah, a little backup
several
plan,
pairs.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Hold back some offspring or something. But
that's
yeah,
true.
I did a show on pygmy pythons with Eric and Owen last night, and so that was one of the mistakes I made early on, is just selling all my offspring and not holding any back, and then I lost my Casey Lazick line of pygmies, and so I still don't have that line because I didn't hold any back from the couple years that I bred them, and so that was kind of a bummer. But that's those are fun lessons that I somehow keep learning. You'd think I'd figure it out by now, but apparently not. So.
No, I'm stoked for those Brettles though. They're gorgeous. So
yeah.
Gorgeous.
Where are you getting them from?
Buddy of mine's actually selling me a pair.
Oh, so, cool. Right on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
So it'll be fun.
Yeah. So. Cool. So you spend a bit of time out herping though, right?
Dude, sometimes I feel like I spend too much time herping. No, it's never too much time. It's not enough time, possible. I should say. Right. It's not enough time.
Yeah. That's cool. Do you mostly focus on Utah, or do you get further afield?
Mainly for the last few years, Utah I focused on, you know. I did move out, I think it was back in 2021. Yeah. I moved to Virginia for a few months.
Okay.
I'd say about 6-7 months. I did quite a bit of herping out there.
Oh, nice.
Got some pretty cool species out there. Got let's see, what did I get? I got rough green out there. I got the mole king while I was out there, which was really cool.
Yeah, that's kind of a rare find, right?
It is, and that's and the way I found it was also kind of a rare way to find it too. I found it while because I used to deliver for FedEx when I lived out there, and I found it in the middle of the day, 95-degree weather, in a neighborhood.
Wow.
Doing a delivery, crossing the road, and I jumped out because I was like, "Cool snake," So I jumped out, and I was like, "Whoa, what are you like? You're not supposed to be even out right now."
Yeah, right.
So that was a really cool find. I think that was one of my coolest finds out there.
Nice. Yeah, I love those kind of unexpected things. That's how I found a diamond python over in north of Sydney a bit, but yeah, we were out looking for like water dragons and lace monitors, that kind of stuff. Middle of the day, heat of the day. It wasn't necessarily a terribly hot day, but we're walking through a cemetery of all places, and all of a sudden there's this diamond python just crawling on the ground,
Oh, wow.
Through the sunlight. Yeah, not expected at all. Didn't even have it on my radar of like keeping an eye out for it. And there's a diamond right there. So, and it was a really good looking diamond. So I was pretty thrilled to have seen that. Yeah.
It's always fun when you're not expecting to see something, and the certain circumstances where you are, the placing, the time, and it's always fun when you see something that you're not expecting to see. You weren't targeting, and you didn't even have that in mind. That's what you're going to be looking for, So
right. Those good surprises. Yeah, I like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's always exciting.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about kind of your background, where you fit into herpetoculture. And
well, I started out liking snakes ever since I was a kid. My dad would take me out snake hunting.
Oh, cool.
And my dad was always into it since he was a kid, growing up in Southern California.
Yeah.
So growing up, my dad would take me out snake hunting over by Bell Mountain down in California, like Barstow area, all that area.
Yeah.
And, just finding the usuals out there, king snakes, shovel noses, a lot of
shovel noses. Shovel noses are really cool.
I know. I really want to find one now. Yeah. I haven't seen one since I was a kid, and it's time to go find one.
Yeah. They're
so fun. And then, my dad never really got into like the, like scientific names or like map ranges of where the species may be. It was just whatever we went out and we could see,
Yeah.
That's all it was about back then.
Was it just
And then
snakes, or was it like kind of, general naturalist type? I mean, were you just out hiking, or was it specifically targeting snakes?
just seemed like just mainly targeting snakes,
Okay. Yeah.
growing up, my dad would he would take me road cruising,
Mhm.
He had
Okay.
his buddy that, would go with us, and that was
Cool.
also into snakes, and
Yeah.
it was cool. So,
Okay. So he
and
was a
then
real herper. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 So, and then I think it was when I started really getting into it, it was probably about 2000 and I want to say 16.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
started really getting into the hobby. I would always
Mhm.
go out, still looking for snakes, but I was kind of like my dad, I would just wherever I went and whatever I found, and then one day I was like, man, I'm tired of seeing the same stuff. so so it's like, okay, what do I got to do? So, I hit up people, asking them,
Mhm.
for spots and stuff like that. Like, where do I go to find this? And
Yeah.
you realize real quick, people aren't going to tell you.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
lot of people will not say. You kind of gotta do the research,
Mhm.
learn yourself, and that's kind of how I met Aspen.
Okay. Yeah.
And
Aspen Mahan, a friend of the show. He's been on here a time or two, I think.
yep,
Yeah,
and
at least
he
once.
he he really helped me out. He didn't shut me off or anything. He's
Mhm.
like, dude, do the research, and so
Mhm.
I did the research, and then I would send him a picture on Messenger of this, the species that I was targeting.
Yeah.
And after 3 or 4 times of doing that, he was like, all right, I'll go out with you.
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
so it's,
Nice.
so the kind of way I fit in is, definitely, do your research. You can't just go find, a pyro out and, anywhere, or, you know, certain species,
Yeah.
you gotta do your
Yeah.
research.
Yeah, and understanding, the natural history, and, kind of when they're out and when they're on the move, and,
Exactly,
where to
time,
look,
what
and
time of the
yeah.
day,
Yep.
there's a
And
lot that goes behind it.
sometimes, ignorance is bliss, and you might have stumble upon some things that people don't know. I know Rob kind of likes this idea of kind of the shoulder seasons, or not going out when everybody else goes out, or looking maybe in an area that's similar to where they've been found, but not the main area where you find them, at least if you found something before. But you know
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I think that, maybe Rob can speak to that, but do
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I don't know, it's just there's more interest in that than replicating what other people are doing, right? So
Mhm.
that if you're really feel like you get a feel for it, and as you highlighted there, it's a lot easier to be more freewheeling with that if you've already seen it, and you can say, okay, I'm going to be a little more adventurous as opposed to just repetitively doing exactly the same thing over and over. So,
Mhm. Yeah, it
Absolutely.
seems like that's what you discovered. You get good at finding something, and then it kind of is not as exciting anymore. And you need that next big fix, or the next cool
Exactly. And
species
then
or whatever.
that's where it comes into play. You
Mhm.
gotta figure out, what's targeting that species,
Yeah.
like general ranges, times, their best
Mhm.
conditions. There's a
Yeah.
lot to it.
Definitely, yeah. And it's a little, especially in Utah, where it seems like if you have a drought year or something, the snake activity goes way down. I think last year was a huge water year, and I mean records of certain species went through the roof, where in previous years it might be a little bit slim pickings. Yeah, so
I've
yeah.
definitely I can concur to that. I've
Yeah.
been out sometimes 8 in the morning, from
Uh-huh.
sundown,
Okay.
7, 8 p.m. to 8 in the morning,
Yeah, yeah,
not
because it's
finding
just
anything.
oh, yeah, right. That's the downside of herping, right? When you're not finding anything. But I do think you have to kind of go through the pain to understand the joy, or to learn how to find them better, or I guess methods that work for you, or that
Right.
kind of thing. So, But yeah, a
Absolutely.
lot of snakeless nights. Yeah, I had one just 2 nights ago. I went out, thinking it was a little bit cold, so I was thinking maybe stuff would be out on the road because the sun was out, heating up the road, but it was kind of cooler air temps. But yeah, nothing was moving. So I
No.
did a few passes. I'm like, yeah, this is probably not worth it, especially when it was getting later. I'm like, yeah, they're just going to be further under with the cold temperatures. But today I went out and was able to find two just massive female garter snakes, probably the biggest garter snakes I've seen. And heavily gravid. They were huge, but it was really
Wow.
kind of weird. It was this female was like moving her tongue kind of strange, like she'd kind of flick it to the side and then she'd do like this loop thing. It was the most
Really?
bizarre behavior. Yeah, it was kind of a weird thing that I'd never noticed before, and I was kind of like holding her, trying to get her to pose, and she's schweezing on me and making me stink pretty good.
Right.
But yeah, trying to, get a picture. And then she starts doing this weird tongue behavior. So I don't know. I've heard of like some snakes that will use their tongue as a lure. Like they keep the tines of the tongue, the forked tongue, they keep them together. So it almost mimics a worm or something. So they're getting things to, come in closer to the head. I think it was, I can't remember what species, but it seems like some venomous snake was using its tongue as a lure. It was a publication, I think maybe in Herp Review or somewhere. And then, but yeah, I don't know if this was like an anti-predator thing or if she was just trying to, sense the environment, trying to figure
Right.
out what I was and what I was trying to do. If I was
I've never
dangerous or
seen it.
whatnot. But yeah,
So
it was
it's
bizarre.
interesting.
Yeah. So I guess that's kind of the fun of herping, is you get to, observe different behaviors potentially. And even in something that I've seen, hundreds of times in a, wandering garter snake, but this time it did something different. So kind
That's
of
true. Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
You find a lot of the same species and stuff, but it's always, each one has its own unique, ways of doing things and
Mhm.
patterns, and it's always, that's one thing with like lutosis. I do love finding lutes because they're so variable,
Yeah. Yeah.
and paterations
Oh
and
yeah.
colors.
And
They're
depending on the
they're so
habitat,
varied. Exactly,
right?
and depending on the habitat, and
Yeah.
I've seen some from super dark to super almost white looking, like
Yeah.
light real,
Yeah. How
it's amazing how variable they are.
Right. That keeps it interesting too, because they are a fairly common rattlesnake, but seeing the variability in color and pattern and finding them in different habitats is really kind of an exciting thing.
It
Even if
is.
you've seen 100 of them. But
Yeah.
there was one we found in St. George area that was just gorgeous. I mean, white, that white with the dark saddles and dark head. It was just beautiful snake. And then a few weeks later, I was looking up Logan Canyon and saw one that was very similar, had that kind of light background with the dark spots. And then I found one a few days later that almost looked like a speckled rattlesnake. It was really like,
Really?
yeah, just in the same area, within probably, less than a quarter mile of each other. That difference in appearance was just striking. It was really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Lutosis are a very underrated rattlesnake.
They are.
Yep.
Super common, but
Yeah.
very, underrated.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, yeah, that's really cool. It's nice to kind of get that introduction, spend that time with your dad. I'm sure, out herping. My dad was more of, he'd take me on backpacking trips. So a lot of the herping was incidental to that. We'd just kind of hike one up and then I'd beg my dad if I could take it home or whatever, and depending
Right.
where we were, or what species it was, he might let me. And it was really nice to have parents that were supportive of, my interests in that regard. And yeah, that's cool. I always wondered, if I had a dad that was really into snakes or something, if that would have been a hindrance or a help, because sometimes kids are like, I don't want to do what my dad does. I want to do my own thing. Yeah. my dad was into plants, and I for the life of me, I have a really hard time learning plants.
You know, I have 2 older brothers, and my dad like I said, got me into this, and both my brothers, they're like, I don't like snakes, and it's like,
Yeah.
and they used to be right there beside me, in the car, going out and hopping out and catching them. And I'm like, you used to love them. Like, what happened?
Yeah. That's weird, huh? It's funny.
It is. It's
people
weird.
just
It's
have
like
different
people
paths.
just grow out,
Yeah.
and me, I've just grown deeper into it. So,
Yeah.
now it's like when you start really, actually studying herpetology, and I don't feel like there's ever a way out now. It just gets more into it.
Right. Yeah.
So
That's I guess that's a good problem to have. I mean, there's definitely worse hobbies. So
yeah.
Oh, that's cool. All right. Well, today we're going to talk about finding or targeting your herp trips to or outings to kind of focus on rare species versus kind of the opposite, just looking kind of in an area for whatever you can find. If you want to go try for the really hard to find things, or whether it's better just to go where you're going to find something and experience an animal. So I think there's definitely pros and cons to both of those sides. So that was the topic that you suggested, and I think it'll be a fun one to debate. So especially considering your experience. So we'll talk about that too. But so Rob and I will flip a coin to see who gets to chat with you here. So why don't you give it a call there, Rob? You're muted though.
Tails.
It is tails. You got one.
Wow.
Nicely done.
Nice.
There you go.
What do we do? Usually you don't win the coin toss.
I know. It's never happened.
Yeah.
That being said, I'm interested in hearing your views, so I will give it to you, and then I will just interject. I love being the peanut gallery that can interject as opposed to having to drive the main conversation. I'll leave the burden to you.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. And then Shane, if you want to go ahead and call it.
Tails.
It's heads. I'll go with the go for the easy, go for the low hanging fruit and try to kind of expound on that. So I'll give you the targeting the rare stuff. So
okay.
I'll let you start out, and maybe you could start out with maybe one of your success stories that you've had recently, if you'd like.
Well, yeah. So I think finding rare species, it's definitely harder. You definitely spend more hours on the field, targeting a lot of these harder species. Really, really pinning down to times, temperatures, habitat, and spring, what time of the year, moisture, a lot of these rare species that we have, down here in southern Utah that I still have to get, that I still haven't personally got on a couple of them. Moisture barriers are a big thing. So for anybody listening, always when you flip rocks, please put them back and seal that moisture barrier back, please, for the next person out looking.
There's nothing more frustrating than going to an area and seeing that habitat destruction by people who profess to care about reptiles. But if you care about reptiles, put those rocks back and do your best to leave it better than you found it if you can.
But like you said, finding a rare species. So I found a leaf nose snake a few weeks back ago, and it was a mind-blowing shock, because I know that there's only been one ever found, and it was back in 1995.
And it was dead, right?
And it was also a DOR. And waiting for that car to go by me, and then seeing another car coming and going right over it, I was like, oh no, like I hope it wasn't hit. And I still seen it moving, and I was like, oh cool. And I pull up and I'm like, oh, it looks like a glossy. And then just just that, like, I can't even explain it, but it's just like that. My face just like melts almost, and like pure excitement. Like, I know what this is. Like, can it be though?
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
And, you know, and it was, and it, you know, getting out, like, I was so excited. And the buddy that was with me, my buddy Jeff, like,
Mm-hmm.
he's not, I wouldn't say he's a herper. He's kind of getting into it a little bit. He
Mm-hmm.
loves, you know, hearing my stories about finding snakes, and I took him out a couple years ago to find a Mojave rattlesnake out there, and he messaged me that weekend. He's like, dude, he's like, I really want to go find a speckled and Cerastes, so I, you know, sidewinder. And I was like, dude, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'll take you out, you know.
Yeah.
Really in my head, I'm like, been out there so many times. You know. So I took him out, and we did one hike, you know, going up a hill looking for specks, and no luck. And I told him, I was like, kind of my routine is I'll do a hike up the hill, do a couple passes, come back to the hill, you know, if I don't find anything by then. So we hiked the hill, came back down, we did a pass, went on one of the dirt roads out there, out on 91.
Yeah.
And did this big old loop, came back to the main road, did one more pass on the main road, and yeah, lo and behold, leaf nose, you know. And
Wow.
I can't say how lucky, you know, I feel to find something that, you know, like I said, nobody else has only found but one person. And like you said, it was a DOR with it. And also it being alive, like, that's awesome. Like, you know, that would have been such a bummer if that car had gotten it. I probably would have cried that night.
Yeah. And you know, that's, I love that kind of, you know, excitement where it's almost unexpected, but, you know, and so in other places, you know, they're fairly common. So, but finding one in Utah is a very, it's a big rarity. So that's gotta be just a crazy exciting time for sure. So
I was almost, you know, to the point where I didn't think, you know, anybody would ever find one out there, including myself, you know. Like, I would have been the guy that's like, I'm going to go to Valley of Fire and get one, you know. Like, I'll take the extra, you know, 50, 60 miles to go that, you know, further south.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I remember herping in California, and they were like one of the most common snakes that you'd see on that trip. But, you know, I saw probably 20, 30 of them in a couple nights of herping. And then on subsequent trips to that same area, I saw very few, maybe one or two. You know, they're just not, I guess it was just the right time or the right year or whatever, but they were just everywhere, you know. So
I've heard that from multiple people. And you know, not only was it cool finding that species in Utah, but that was also my lifer for anywhere.
Yeah.
You know? So, and that was one of my high on my list targets too, was a leaf nose.
That's cool.
Like I said, my buddy was with me, and he didn't quite get the excitement at first of why I was so excited to find it.
Yeah.
So I had to really break it down. And then once he kind of, you know, realized how rare it was, he was like, that is cool, you know, like, kind of. And it makes me feel happy too, because I feel like now, like, that just brings him closer into this hobby as well. You know? Just get to see maybe that excitement.
Maybe he'll catch on that excitement and want to try to do the same thing. And, you know, you wonder too, like, now that you found one, are there more out there, or, you know, and that's, and also the fact that you found it, you knew what it was, you know, so it's not just somebody, oh, it's just some weird snake, or, oh, it's a glossy, or, you know, just kind of passing it off as something else, or not knowing what they're finding.
Right. You know, which we don't know if that's ever happened.
Yeah.
You know, somebody maybe have seen, you know, a leaf nose before, but we don't know.
Yeah. Or thought it was a rattlesnake for, you know, all they knew or something. But
I think
that's cool that you were the one to find it, so you could identify it and properly record it, you know, that kind of thing. So
I kind of been hitting that area one or two times a week now, just to see if there, possibility if it's the right time of the year that, to find more. I would like to see more of a population of them. And I think it's still going to be rough, but I think the main target going down there for them is washes. I think I need to spend myself. I never really spent a whole lot of time walking the washes out there. And I think the washes is going to be the best bet down there for their habitat, that loose, soil, rocky, sandy soil.
Yeah. In California, they were in pretty dry desert conditions, like out there with sidewinders, they were, so it makes sense that you'd find one in that, very southwest corner of Utah where there's not a ton of, not a ton of water or moisture of any kind.
Yeah. So, that's kind of my, focus right now is washes down there and trying to pull, see if I can start getting more of a population seeing of them.
Sure. Yeah.
So, but who knows? It could be another 29 years.
Right? Certainly. The cool thing to me in terms of engagement with this topic is that we had seen my lifer in Southern California a month beforehand or whatever. And on the third trip there, obviously there was overlap with our trips and where you were highlighting not seeing them, Justin. But so I just saw my first one, 6 weeks ago or whatever. And they're fantastic little snakes, and they definitely do look like a glossy. And then that was the thought, hopped out of the car in exactly the sort of habitat you're describing. And it was like, oh, it's a gloss. No, it's not, and the excitement of like, wow, this, because this is something that I've really wanted to see for a long time as well, but they're really tough to explicitly target. And now maybe we're picking up these little pieces of saying, okay, well, based on this, what can we do or whatever. But even that, I do get the impression that there's something where when they go off, and otherwise they're just not surface active, or we're not seeing them at the right time or whatever. And that goes back to the literature from the 1930s, right? Of saying like they used to be thought to be an extremely rare snake, and people were road cruising the desert in Southern California. And it was like, oh, well, when they go off, they can really go off, but otherwise, they're not a consistently found.
Yeah. No. I think that was I took it a little bit for granted, seeing the numbers that I did that first trip out there, and just being like, oh, this is just, a snake that you commonly see. But then on other trips you see none, and you're like, oh, well, maybe, what was the special sauce there? Because it was, I look back, it was that first week of June, and June 6th, 7th, something like that. So, for whatever reason, they were out in abundance at that time.
Right.
So, yeah.
And it's one of those things, like how many times have people, driven that road out there and not seen one? But we got to also remember how many times that people aren't out there during weeks, work weeks and real dry parts of the year where people we don't want to go out there. It's not probably going to be very successful. Yeah. We don't know how many have crossed the road since then.
Yeah. So, right. Yeah. I remember one time I was passing through St. George. So I called up Aspen and Chris and said, hey, I'm just passing through. You guys want to just do a couple passes with me? And they're like, nah, it's too dry. You're not going to see anything. And I saw 4 or 5 gopher snakes, a king snake, a couple croats, DOR croats. But there were a couple lutoses.
That's usually how it works. Yeah. I had offered Aspen to come out with me that night as well.
I bet he's kicking himself. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I called him up that night when I had found it. I had video chatted because I was like, dude, I found it. And he's like, no. And I was like, yeah. And he was like, let me see. And he was like, that's so awesome.
Yeah. And he didn't drive out there right then, huh?
No. The fun was gone.
Come on, Aspen.
For him.
Yeah. Well, he could have gotten some pictures in situ and all that.
Oh, he did. He got some good pictures.
Okay.
So,
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. Good times. Well, I guess in regards to that, I think that may, kind of go to a little bit to my side as well, because, if you weren't necessarily out there targeting them, you were just
No.
out herping, and
Yep.
so, sometimes you can get lucky and find, something really rare or in an area that's unanticipated, and you're not even really looking for it, you're just out herping for the general stuff or whatever, and so, I think that, that obviously that's a thing of great excitement. And, if you can find something in an area where you didn't anticipate it, that's always a cool thing. Yeah.
No,
Um,
that was pure luck.
mhm. And I think, if you're, we talk a little bit about kind of getting, I've been there, done that kind of thing. I found everything in my area that I can find, but, going to maybe new places or checking similar habitat in different areas. And it's interesting too, where, the habitat is similar to where you're finding things like, maybe like a smooth green snake, in, Provo or Salt Lake area, but you get up to Ogden or Logan and they're not there, they're just not found up that high. And why, why, if they can be found at, those spots, why aren't they found further north? It's kind of an interesting thing, what restricts things. And then, is it just our lack of adventure or not trying to look other places to find things, so I keep hoping I'll run across some, species that's not known from my area and be able to expand that range a little bit. I had some friends that were in from the Midwest, and they came up to Logan because I lived up there, and they're like, "Hey, you got some herping we could do?" So I just took them up Logan Canyon. We found a loot and a gopher and a couple other little things, some lizards and stuff. And they were only up there for a couple hours, and so they're that was worth coming up to see a few snakes. And then they headed back, and I think they were somewhere in Sardine Canyon, and just found a little trail and hiked up the trail in the dark and found a night snake. And I'm like,
Oh,
wow, that's a rare find, for far, that far north in Utah.
yeah.
You're not finding a ton of night snakes. And I think there's one record of one in Logan Canyon. So it's like making me think I need to get out there more and target, night snakes, or try to find more night snakes in my county, that kind of thing.
Same here. I need to find two species out here that I get in Washington all the time, but I haven't gotten in Iron County.
Mm-hmm.
And that's long noses and night snakes.
Hmm.
They're here.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've lived here in Iron County for 22 years, and I've yet to see one. And I'm starting to question their existence here in Iron County, but I know they're here.
Yeah, that's
I just don't know where.
So how are you gonna rectify that, I guess? What are your plans?
So night snake, probably flipping, honestly. Going out flipping out here. Which I do plenty of that for looking for ringnecks.
Yeah.
And long nose, nighttime, dark, a couple areas out here where it's real sandy next to the roads. So that's probably my best bet. And I've done a lot of it and keep trying and keep getting nothing, and the results still aren't there. And it's cool because it's species I see so commonly down in Washington County, but I feel like it's same species that I'll find here, but it's going to feel cool again finding it, because it's like, it's in a new county. It's, your county that you live in specifically, and spent years looking and you still haven't gotten one. And I feel like when I do find that, same species, as down there that I've seen hundreds of times, I'm going to be excited again.
Yeah, right.
So
have they been recorded in your county at all? Or?
There is, yeah. So there's two long-nosed on INAT, and then there is a few night snakes on INAT as well. And the professor down here for SUU, William Hayborn, he's found quite a few himself.
Okay. So. Yeah, because it seems like they're kind of found throughout the the western side of Utah, all the way from just south of the Great Salt Lake down, and probably further north. I'm sure there not many people go up kind of on the west side of the Great Salt Lake much for herping purposes, but
Yeah.
you can find them close. Up towards the top of the state, it seems, but there's not many records up there. But I think that should be possible as well, because you can find them up into Idaho. So, it would make sense that they would kind of have a contiguous range throughout Utah on the west side. So, yeah. Well, that's cool. Yeah. Good luck with those, those efforts. Yeah. I guess, I look at, there's some really good examples of herpers in Utah that kind of go outside of the known areas. I really think about like Brian Eager with his efforts with the milk snakes and finding them in all the counties that he can find them in. He's searching new habitat and new areas, and he's been fairly successful in finding them in most of the counties, where they can possibly be found, and probably will find them in more counties before he's done. Same thing with
absolutely.
Rye Jones, same kind of thing.
He's great at what he does, and I still have so many questions for Brian.
Yeah, I know. He's a wealth
someday
of
I can get some of those answered.
Right.
Maybe we'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love, seeing his posts and seeing his photos, and yeah, man, such an awesome dude.
Yeah. And same with Thomas Wilder with the pyros. He's like the pyro whisperer, pyro expert, and just has a wealth of knowledge in regards to how to find pyros. I guess maybe, I don't know if it's my there's just so many cool species, and maybe I haven't done it enough or gotten to that point yet where I just want to focus on one, species and kind of chase that species over and over throughout the state, where it's kind of like, I want to see more than just one species, but at the same time, I still want to see those species, but it's maybe not quite so targeted, or maybe more generalist approach. And I think, but there is some joy to kind of saying, I want to find this species, and here's where I think they are, and going there and finding that species. That can be really a almost a bigger thrill, because you can either expand a range or find something that's new to you in a new spot or something like that. So I don't know. It's hard to know which is more rewarding, which is better. Yeah.
It's all rewarding, putting in the time, the hours, when it comes down to it. Even if you don't find what you're looking for, it just means you're going to be getting that much closer,
Sure. Yeah.
So I always try to look at it at a brighter side,
Yeah.
There's still 2 species for Southern Utah that I need to get off my list. And it's my last 2 for Southern Utah, and that's ringneck and blinds.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Those are both on my list as well. those are the tricky ones, right?
Yep. And I've spent hundreds of hours looking for rings and flipping, and I can't seem to get one. And some people are like, yeah, it's rare. And then you get some people that's like, I see them all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I still remember that picture. I think it's Rye Jones and Pat
Man. What is it?
My gosh, I'm
Pat
terrible.
May, I think.
Patty
right?
May,
yeah. It's just Pat May. Yeah.
Dang. Yeah, I was getting confused between Aspen Mahan and Pat May, but yeah, Pat May and Rye Jones, and like the handfuls of ringnecks, like they have like 5 or 6 in one trip, and a bunch of milks to boot. And I asked him about that, and he's like, yeah, that was weird. It just kind of happened. You can't predict that. It's like you just get out there enough, and you might have one of those just once in 100 years events of finding 6 ringnecks or however many they found. I still just like drool over that photo, like thinking, how cool would that be? But they put in the time, they put in the effort, and they're out there all the time. I'm like, man, how do you, I was asking Pat, how do you get out so often? He's like, well, I have an agreement with my wife that, between, the 1st of May and middle of June, I'm herping. That's what I do. And yeah. So I guess you just have to work out a deal with your wife and make it happen. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's a challenging thing, especially with work. I guess if you have uh, either you can stay up late and have, really you can function at work the next day, but that can be a challenge too. Work really gets in the way of herping, doesn't it?
It does. It really does. I go out. It was just when was it? Monday night. I was down in St. George already, getting ready to head back to see. I wasn't even down there for herping. Um, and I was getting ready to head back to Cedar. And when my buddy had called me and he was like, "Hey, I'm in town for the night." And I'm like, "Oh man, I was just getting ready to head back to Cedar." He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "I just wanted to see if you were gonna, like to come out." And I'm like, "I don't know, dude. Like, I got work in the morning." And then it's like that guilt hits, like, "Oh, he's in town for one night.
Yeah.
Like, I gotta go."
I can pull
So,
through. Yeah.
and it was super windy that night out there.
Mhm.
And we still, we got a long nose and a
Yeah.
lutosis. So I was
Yeah.
happy with that.
Cool.
And I got a really pretty long, that was my first, like long nose that was close to a Claris face.
Yeah. Yeah.
Still
I
wasn't
saw
quite,
that.
I wouldn't say it's quite a Claris face because
Yeah.
Claris means no red, but
Mhm.
um it was the prettiest long nose I've ever seen. So
Nice.
I was
Yeah.
really excited for that.
Yeah, I got my first Claris. I think it was last year or the year before, but yeah, we were just out herping. I thought it was a Cal King because it was just, yeah, that black and white banding. I'm like, oh wow, a Cal King. And I'm like, no, that's a long nose. Whoa. Yeah, it was really low. I can't remember how much it didn't have much red at all, but it was just kind of that black and white phase of long nose, which yeah, I still think I prefer the high red, that's really cool look
Yeah.
anytime you get red on a snake like that. But it is cool to see the variability and to find the different phases and things like that. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. I've had some other kind of incidental lucky finds, I guess, but somewhat unlucky. We had kind of a misadventure in a canyon in southeastern Utah, kind of on the White Mesa area, or no?
Okay.
I think White Mesa. Anyway, we were out there doing a canyon, kind of over by Height, by that arm of the Lake Powell, and we were hiking a canyon with my daughters, and it was a little rougher than I remembered. And my daughters are like, "Why did you think we could do this easily?" And long story short, we ended up spending the night in the canyon, which was not ideal and made my wife very nervous because she hadn't heard from us. She was about ready to get in the car and drive down there to try to find us. So anyway, we come out of the canyon in the morning, and I spotted a canyon tree frog, and I'm like, "Oh, check out the frog!" And my oldest daughter's like, "That's a lizard, Dad. What are you talking about?" I'm like, "It's clearly a frog." Like, and I point at it, and she's like, "No, what about this lizard?" There was a banded gecko, a juvenile banded gecko right below it on the same rock. And I'm like, "Oh, I didn't even know you could find these here. That's really cool." But I had
That's awesome.
no phone battery left, so I couldn't take a picture. And so I was really tempted just to collect it. But then I'm like, well, I don't know. We were planning on camping, so I'm like, it probably is not going to do great, and I didn't really have anything to put it in. So I'm like,
Sure.
I'll just leave it here. But then turns out like it's 50 miles from the nearest record, that I know of anyway. So I'm like, oh, it's kind of a range extension, but I have no picture of it. I was really frustrated, but kind of cool to see that. So I need to go back there and try to find some more if I can. But
With the charged phone, right?
yeah, exactly. Or a good camera or something. But yeah, I was talking to Brian Eager, and I'm like, yeah, I found this banded gecko there. And he's like, oh, that's cool. We should go looking for more. And he's like, you didn't happen to find any canyon tree frogs out there that way? I'm like, as a matter of fact, there was one on the same rock. And he's like, oh, that's kind of a rare find out there too. You don't really see them out there. I haven't seen many out there. And so yeah, it's kind of a just a luck of the whatever, I guess, maybe a little consolation prize for the torment that I inflicted on my daughters, having them sleep in a canyon on the Slick Rock. But
That was the reward right there.
yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, that's those incidental finds are pretty exciting. But I didn't necessarily target them, but I think that can lead to now, going out and exploring those same areas, trying to find similar, find more individuals or expand our knowledge in that area on these species. So
Sure.
yeah.
I can't express. It's important, putting in those hours, because especially when it comes to these rare species, unless you're just one of those people that get it based off of that luck,
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
and putting in the hours and the time, because if you don't, you're not gonna. Some of these species you're not gonna get.
yeah.
And maybe you do, but like I said, it can either be luck or a long time. But it's so rough with some of these species. I think Utah is a hard state to herp.
It can be, yeah, definitely.
It can be,
yeah, for sure.
For certain things, it definitely can be a harder, state to herp. Where you go to Arizona or California, you get ringnecks, out there all the time. You come to Utah and it's like, good luck.
Yeah. They almost seem like a different species, some of the ringnecks and especially in the eastern states or central states, you can find 30 under a rock. They're just like,
oh yeah,
very very common
in Virginia.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they're just a different animal. Here the habitat just restricts them. It's very a difficult find, and it's hard, it's kind of hard to target them to some extent, but I don't know, some people seem to find them pretty easily. So
I'm just hoping for some upcoming moisture so I can go back to targeting those two species, blinds and ringnecks. And I would love to checklist that off this year. I don't know. Might not, and might give me something again to start in spring next year.
Right.
But,
no, I feel the same way. Like it's a little harder for me where it's like a 5-hour drive just to get to, habitat where you can find them. So maybe not quite so far for ringnecks, but yeah.
See, I'm in the same boat too with, starting northern Utah, because I need to, start getting some of the species that you guys have up where you are, rubbers, smooths, and milks. And I went a couple months ago for milks, and I spent 8 hours out there, just flipping these massive boulders. And I don't know what it is, but your guys' rocks are heavy out there. And I had no success with milks, and I was like, I don't know if I want to go through that again. That's rough.
It is pretty miserable. I think I'd much rather look for pyros than milks, just because the rock
any
flipping.
Day.
Oh man.
Any day.
It's crazy.
Pyros, you just hike and you see one in a wash somewhere, crossing. It's that was a rough day. And then I went for boas while I was up there too, hiking up for boas, and I didn't get I think the only thing I got up on there was a wandering garter when I was out there. So
I've got a decent spot. If you're ever up here, I can take you and we can try to find some boas. That's what I went out for the other night and didn't find any, but around this time last year I found about half a dozen at this spot. So they're up there. Yeah. And I've hiked them up there as well. And
I'll definitely have to take you up on that, because that's a species that I would really love to photograph. So
yeah, they're cool. That was my first pet snake, was a rubber boa when I was a kid. Yeah, terrible first pet for sure, but didn't fare too well. But they're cool snakes for sure. I've been tempted to keep them again, try to do them better justice now that I know what I'm doing with them. So I've tried to keep them off and on as a kid, with limited success. So but it would be they're really interesting and neat species for sure. So
Yeah.
cool. I think, you know, that I guess regardless of how you herp or what your methods are or whatever, it does take a little bit of luck to find these things, you know. And I think especially if you, it seems like before you found a species, it's almost like kind of a white whale in some way, some of these species anyway. And then you finally find one, and then you're like, oh, that's how you find it, and it kind of clicks a little bit more, and maybe is a little easier down the road. Of course that depends on the species, but you know, it
Right.
seems like that kind of helps a bit to kind of have that one out of the way. It's a little less hectic, or a little less, you know, you're a little more relaxed, and maybe that helps too when you're trying to find stuff. But I don't
Yeah.
know. That's
That's what I usually, tell people. It's 90% luck.
mhm.
A
Yeah.
lot of the times it comes to really what it comes down to. And then the other 10% is just putting in those hours, that time.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
for sure. Yeah. And I mean, I was, I think it was Brian Eager that told the story about how he looked for king snakes in eastern Utah and spent, you know, lots of time and gas money and hours out looking and stuff. And then he was about ready to give up. And then he saw one at a gas station, like crawling along the side of the pump and, you know, in a small town in southeastern Utah. And he's like, oh, there's one right there. You know, I just had to fill up my gas tank and I'd find one or something. It's kind of bizarre. Just
it's
you wouldn't
crazy how it
expect to find
works.
it there. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
it's crazy how sometimes, it works out that way. It's like the universe was
Yeah,
by your side.
right.
So
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, but yeah, you get lucky sometimes, and I think, you know, the more hours you're putting in, the more luck you're gonna have. You know,
yeah,
yeah,
exactly, Coco.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah, it
it's
it definitely helps putting in those hours. And I
mhm,
I'm loving seeing you know, I bumped into a couple new people this year, while out looking for pyros. And
mhm.
it's cool seeing other people putting in the hours for some of these other species that are, that take a little bit more time to,
Yeah, yeah,
put in for. You
mhm,
know, pyros is one. I know you can road cruise for them in certain areas, but
mhm.
more than likely, you're gonna have to walk on them.
Yeah,
Walk them up.
yeah.
And I think that's more rewarding too, honestly, walking things up.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Flipping, is
Yeah,
definitely a lot more rewarding.
yeah,
But yeah, it's cool seeing other people out there in the field doing the same thing you're doing.
yeah,
And seeing other people putting in those hours
right.
and that time. And it's awesome. It's kind of cool to see that the herping community in Utah is just, and maybe even around the world, is just growing so much. And I just hope that people keep growing into it and enjoying the same thing that I love. And just respecting the nature of it. And my big thing is I just hope people are putting back rocks and
Yeah.
keeping it good for the next person.
Right. Yeah, I guess if they're road cruising, there's, you know, it's hard to get that wrong, you know, unless you run over a snake or something. But you
Which
know,
I'm
if you
sure we've all done
sure,
on
yeah,
accident.
you're right. Yeah. But yeah, if you find the snake, get it off the road, take a picture or two, and then, you know, go on your way. It's hard to mess that up. But yeah, definitely rock flipping is it's important to get that right, or else you're going to
Yeah.
be destroying habitat and ruining your chances down the line if you're looking in the same spot, or ruining other people's chances in that same area. Yeah, it's
Well,
nothing worse than coming on an area that's just flipped.
yeah,
And
especially with some of these species that are so moisture dependent.
mhm. And that's Utah. I mean, you know, and I think, you know, there's probably a lot of, I always think, you know, these giant rocks are the ones that are firmly entrenched that you're not going to be able to get. That's probably where they're hanging out, you know. So we get lucky on some of these smaller rocks that they might shelter under. So I'm hoping that, you know, the majority of the population is using rocks that we can't really get to, or get underneath, and so maybe
Yeah.
that kind of gives me a little consolation if I come across a disturbed area where people have been irresponsible and not replaced the rocks. But yeah, but definitely put the rocks back. That's very important, especially in Utah where, you know, it's really hard to to get that humidity and get that right microenvironment underneath the rocks.
Exactly.
So, yeah. I think about, kind of the time of year too in Utah, like kind of the spring is the, I guess, easiest time to herp, in May and June. And that's when you're usually finding the most stuff. And then it kind of gets progressively harder as things get hotter and species move down. But you might have better luck with certain species when it gets hotter. And I wonder sometimes too, if we give up, during those times of year where it's like, oh, it's going to be too hot and dry. I'm not going to bother, or, I'm not going to find what I want to find. So I'm not going to go out, and maybe that's when they're moving, kind of going back
it very well could be. I know I'm one to admit that I've been there where I'm like, it's too hot. Nothing's going to be out. I'm not going out.
Yeah.
And
you're usually right. I mean, there often isn't a lot moving, but you might get lucky and have some weird night where
I think road cruising during the hot years, that's one thing, I'll still do. But when it comes to flipping, in the hot, there's no point. You're just ruining, the moisture that was, potentially could be under there.
Yeah.
That's most likely not under there until it rains. But so I kind of give up on flipping around this time. And then I kind of wait, especially here in Iron County, for the monsoons to kind of roll in and see, if we get enough rain. And then I'll start doing a little bit more flipping again. But road cruising, I still road cruise a lot when it's hot, because on hot days, because I love going out regardless, finding something or not, it's the excitement of just getting out. And like I said, there's been plenty of nights where I've stayed out until 8 a.m. with nothing. And but then there's nights where I've gone out when I didn't want to go out and I get a leaf nose.
Yeah, right.
So
that's a good lesson.
It's kind of one of those times in the month right now too, where May and June is kind of the best, best month for leaf noses. So I got to keep going this month out there. So
yeah. Well, good luck. I hope you find a couple more. That'd be really cool.
I'm hoping so.
Yeah.
You need to come down, get more eyes out there.
I know. I'm about at my rope's end with time off, so I've been neglecting things up here to go herping. But yeah, I could probably do an overnight trip, a Friday night, Saturday type thing. But yeah,
I think we talked about maybe going up to that spot that I was telling you about for Abyssus.
Yeah, that would be really cool. And just make a quick rocket run out there and check stuff out. Yeah. That would be awesome. Yeah, we'll have to make that happen. Yeah, we'll pick a day or two and just go out there and explore a bit. So
yeah. Other than that, I just got a trip coming up next month for narrow-headed garters.
So oh, nice. Down in Arizona, or
down in Sedona.
Cool. Yeah, that'd be a fun species to find. Yeah, hopefully you get some of those.
I'm hoping so. We kind of got quite a bit of eyes going on. We got me, Chris, and Aspen. One of Aspen's buddies, Dustin, will be going up there.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah, he's our buddy too. He was just on the last the herp trip in southeastern Utah. So Dustin's great. Yeah.
So
with him.
Hopefully we can get enough eyes on that river and get a species that's also another kind of rare species.
Yeah, right. So. That's cool. Yeah, Sedona's a neat area. I was just down there in April, canyoneering. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
It's beautiful out there.
Oh yeah, it's incredible landscape. So I wouldn't mind getting back there to herp. I wish I had more time, but got to save up my time off for a trip to Australia later this year. So
it's all work now, no play, huh?
Yeah, exactly. So got to save up my time, but about used up all my PTO. So yeah, but a rocket run over a weekend would probably be a doable thing. So let me know when you want to head out. Probably sooner than later, right? But
absolutely.
I have a friend that's coming in from Germany or Austria. I can't remember where they live, either in Germany or Austria, but he just messaged me the other day and he's like, yeah, my kids want to see a rattlesnake when we're over in the US. I see that you're finding some, so can you teach me how or or show me how? So I'm like, yeah, let me know when you're around and I'll try to make it out there. And if I can't make it out there, I'll give you as many tips as I can think of to try to find one. So
That's
yeah.
awesome.
But yeah, he'll be in like the national parks and stuff in Utah. So should have a good chance.
Shouldn't be too hard.
Yeah, exactly. But it's funny, like, I don't know, when we were in Canyonlands last or the week before last, the one of the rangers was like, oh yeah, I've worked here for 5 years and I've never seen a rattlesnake in Canyonlands. And we're like, are you serious? Like, you're not looking then. You're not paying attention when you're driving at night or something, because they're all over the place, in this area. So if you're not seeing them, you're not looking. Because
I think that's what it is
yeah.
If somebody doesn't, there's people that don't want to see them, and that's, kind of their way of avoiding all that. And, we're the guys that are like, our eyes are focused on that little line going across the road.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, it is kind of easy to miss those things, and but
Yeah.
you get better at it as you do it more, for sure. And that kind of maybe speaks a little bit to the skill of it. You can get better at spotting things on the road or spotting things on the shoulder or things like that. That kind of comes with experience, or knowing what a snake on the road looks like versus, all the other assorted things that you see on the road. And also just going back for something to check it out, give it a second look, because a lot of times it might not look like a snake. There was an example from this last herp trip where I thought it was like one of those road tabs, because it was kind of a weird shape. It was a baby concolor. Unfortunately, it got clipped on the tail, so it was in the throes of death, unfortunately. But yeah, it was not fun to have to, put it out of its misery. But that's how it goes sometimes. But yeah. But yeah, I was glad we went back. And same with we got a pyro road cruising. I thought it was like a tar line, and I'm like, let's go look. I think that was a snake. And we flipped around and it was a pyro. So and
That's
it would look
awesome.
it looked like a tar line because it had almost no red on it. It was like, again, it looked kind of like a Cal King. It was just so much black on that thing. It looked like a road tar tar stripe.
Amazing.
So it's pretty cool.
I haven't cruised a pyro crossing the road yet, but I have cruised a pyro on a dirt road, looking at a pile of cliff rocks.
Oh yeah.
And seeing one on the cliffs on the side of the road as I'm driving, and that was cool.
Oh yeah, that's really cool. That's to see one while you're driving on the side of the road anywhere. That's some skill right there.
Yeah.
I guess it helps when it's a red and black and red and white snake. But
yes,
very cool. That's got to be a highlight for sure.
It is. It's definitely one up there on one of the rememberable, and that was my lifer as well. So
nice. Very cool. I think we lost Rob. Well, I think Rob said he could hear us, but he's been frozen in that same position. So I don't think he's his Wi-Fi is acting up or something. But yeah, unfortunately, we've lost Rob, so we don't get his wonderful insights. Man, that's been a frustration in the last several shows. Is we will occasionally lose Rob, and I really like his input on these topics, but we'll have to. Unfortunately, he's kind of in a tenuous situation because he doesn't want to screw it up if he does something and it messes up the recording or something. But
no, I get it.
Yeah. Well, any other I guess big pros or cons to targeting rare species that you can think of that we didn't discuss yet?
I think go for it all.
Yeah.
Right. Go for it all.
Just get out there. That doesn't matter what you're targeting, I guess.
Doesn't matter.
Just
do
get out
research.
and
if you really want to find a certain species, do your research. It doesn't hurt to ask people. don't expect people to give you exact locations and spots, but
Yeah.
you know, I'm always open to give people tips and stuff like that. And but as far as, you know, going out, just go out and enjoy it, have fun.
Yeah.
You know, whatever you find should always be awesome, you know.
Right.
So
yeah, I think a lot of times we kind of have that bias where, oh, I've seen this snake in this area, so that's the place I'm going to spend my time because I know they're found there. And if I've only found one or something, maybe I'll spend more time in that area. And other times, like I've seen 10, 15 of them, it's time to move to a new spot and try to find them somewhere else. So I'm not just doing the same old thing. So I don't know.
Exactly.
I think it is kind of a cool thing to get adventurous and get kind of, but you've got to put in the time beforehand to see those first 10 or 20 or whatever.
Yeah. My big thing right now is new ranges, you know, trying to find new ranges for certain species. And I think that'd be cool, you know, pulling up some new ranges.
For sure. I think that's kind of the progression, right? After you get used to finding them in a certain area, you're like, I want to see these in a different area, or I want to try to expand what is known about these. And I think that's kind of where it gets challenging and exciting and things like that. So it's a lot of fun.
But other than that, no, that's pretty much all I got, is just go out there, have fun. You know, everybody needs to be safe, you know, when you're flipping around, pay attention for other vehicles, you know, safety is always first.
Right. So. Yeah, that can be a little sketchy out on the roads at night. Although, you know, some roads like where you found the leaf nose are pretty long and straight, and you can see cars coming a long way away. But others are, you know, if they're windy or blind corners and stuff, it can be a little sketchy. Yeah. So be careful out there. And also, you know, if you're flipping rocks, make sure you're not just sticking your hands under the rocks in case there's a loot hiding under there and gives you a nice little bite on the finger or something. That would not be ideal.
Yeah. Always be aware. Always flip it, you know, be you know, cautious to how you're flipping it. You don't want to be sticking your hand all the way under that thing and, you know, getting a little surprise. You never know.
Yeah. More than rattlesnakes, there's also black widows and scorpions and centipedes and all sorts of
I guess a scorpion would probably be, you know, or a black widow maybe would probably be the better outcome than a rattlesnake.
Yeah, that's true, but still not desirable. Yeah.
None of it's desirable. So just keep your hands, you know, not quite, you know, more on towards the top.
Yeah, exactly. So, I wonder about those kind of the Kevlar or whatever gloves, the bite proof gloves that you see a lot of people handling, maybe some of the smaller venomous, the Hexclad or whatever, the bite proof things. I wonder how well they'd work, but
I don't know.
They're not much dexterity with those things. We had some. We were trying to handle a coral snake down in Arizona, and this thing was pretty small. And I spotted it. Its tail was sticking out from underneath like a fallen yucca, and so I tailed it, you know, and I picked it up by the tail just to make sure that it didn't get away or go down a hole or something. And so, and then, you know, we had these gloves, and so we were trying to handle it with those gloves, and man, it was not very effective. It was very difficult because of the small size, you know, and no dexterity in the fingers when they're bite proof. So I guess there's trade-offs, you know, that kind of thing. But
that's
probably shouldn't be handling venomous snakes. It's probably not the best idea anyway.
Probably not the best. I'm guilty of it. I think we're all guilty of it, and you know.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, from time to time, I've probably made some pretty stupid decisions. But I think free handling is definitely off the table. But
I've kind of even gotten to the point where I don't even use my hook as much anymore. Sometimes I don't even take my hook if I'm hiking up. You know, I've gotten so many photos of the species now where I'm just at the point where it's like, if it's in the perfect position, I'll get my photo. If it doesn't want to be photographed, well, that's fine. I've gotten photos before, you know.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And then that's when you find like an albino or some kind of
I know, right? That's gonna be when I find the albino and I don't have my hook. I'm like, now I gotta use this little stick.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, very cool. We appreciate you coming on and discussing this topic.
I appreciate it. Thank you guys for inviting me on. but I'm glad to be on tonight. So
Yeah, it's great to hear some of your experiences, and sharing that excitement of finding a rare species, somewhere where it's not necessarily anticipated to be seen. So very cool. Congratulations. And hopefully we hear back from, you hear back from the editor, and you're publishing that, or planning to publish it in her review. And
I looked today after you told me you heard back. From yours, I looked and I still haven't gotten anything. And I think I sent mine the same day as yours, I believe, right?
Yeah.
I haven't heard nothing. Maybe he's just, I'm sure they're busy getting tons in, so he might have skipped over mine and go back and see it later. So
I'm sure he probably, and the message I got was basically like, give us a couple months, we'll get back to you. So it's not like it's going to speed it up if I hear from him sooner than later, because it's still going to be a couple months.
Just keep hitting resend.
Yeah. But I've heard herp journals are notorious for taking quite a while. And I mean, Herp Review is kind of a special, they put it together a lot of different, range extension, field observations, those kind of things, which is, cool, but I'm sure it takes a lot of time and is kind of tedious to get everything together and reviewed and stuff like that. So I'm okay to, I waited, 12 years to publish this anyway. So what's another couple months,
Exactly.
At least the one I'm trying to publish. But we'll see if it gets through.
That'd be
very
awesome.
cool. All right. Well, at the end of the show, we kind of like to maybe ask if you've seen anything cool in the reptile world, or seen anything interesting in the last little bit.
No, not too much, just my personal experiences of seeing the leaf nose and stuff. Other than that, no, just always love hearing other people's stories of seeing cool stuff though. So
yeah, right.
Always keeping my ears out for that.
I picked up a new field guide. It's on the reptiles and amphibians of New Mexico. So I'd like to maybe do a herp trip down there. I'm sure Rob's got one in mind, where we need to find Obscurus, and that's about the only place that you're going to find them in the U.S. Without going
New Mexico,
on,
you said?
Without going on private land. So it'd be really cool to add that species or subspecies, I guess, to the list. But yeah, Wilderdi are probably one of my favorite rattlesnakes. They're just really, I really dig that face stripe and the ridge nose that they're named for. But very
New
cool
Mexico's high on my list. I really want to go out there for Alternus. So
yeah, there's some neat stuff out there for sure. Yeah, it's a good place to herp. So I don't know, hopefully that's in the near future, next couple of years or something. But yeah, I'm headed to Florida next month for a cruise, but my wife and I are going a couple days early so we can, go check out the Everglades, go down the Keys, some stuff like that. So Aspen was very kind and gave me some nice advice. So I'm really excited to get out there and see what I can find. But
yeah, he's got to ask. He just got back from his successful trip, so
they found a lot of stuff. And then his first trip was really successful too. Like I think they found like a eastern diamondback within the first couple hours of getting there or something. It was pretty cool. So
yeah, he's gotten really good stuff out there, so hopefully he can give you some good tips and lead you on to some cool stuff too. So I'm excited to see when you get back to see if you got any good photos coming up. So
now it won't be quite so herp intensive with my wife, but she's pretty good about going out with me. Actually, she's a really good herping companion. She does pretty well, although I don't know how much she enjoys it, but she sees the enjoyment I get out of it, and so she's happy to go along.
That's awesome.
So it's
that
nice.
is awesome.
Where can people find you if they want to see your see the things you're doing or the animals you're finding?
Find me on Facebook. I got Instagram, just under Shane Madsen under Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody ever want to message me and, get any information, and maybe go out or something, I'm more than willing, as long as I'm free. But yeah,
Cool.
I'm always open. So
Right on. Well, thanks again for coming on, and we'll thank Eric and Owen and the NPR crew and for hosting our show and letting us do this fun stuff and getting cool people on like Shane. So I appreciate them, and we'll
thank you guys. Appreciate you.
Thanks again for coming on, and we'll hopefully have you back. Get some more good stories out of you. So
absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks for listening to Reptile Fight Club, and we'll catch you again next week for another episode. Fight Club.